Do you know what's important in any tabletop game? Wizards. Now, personally, I would consider myself not a big fan of wizards as I'm not a turbo nerd. Well, I would say that normally, except the fact that I like wizards and shit like Pathfinder. In reality, mages are cool, just if they're not in Dungeons and Dragons, because you know, I like good games. But anyways, that's where we get things like Clan Tremere, because even if you're playing a game with vampires, you gotta have wizards. Just because we're in Vampire, they're goth. We have immensely goth wizards who study their spell tomes with a nice vintage blood chalice. And also, if you don't like the niche of vampire wizards with blood magic, maybe you want a little, I don't know, vampire Scientology? They all operate in a vampire multi-level marketing scheme. A bit weirder of a vampire niche if you want to fill it, but that's Clan Tremere, which is also, if I'm going to be completely honest, one of my absolute favorite clans in this game. I adore them.
Thank you to my channel members for making these videos possible, and a special shout out to Christian Voorhees for subscribing at the highest level. This level of support truly helps the channel, so this is greatly appreciated.
Now, one thing you might have noticed if you've watched my other vampire clan videos is when I'm talking about like the old ass ancient vampire civilizations, I'm talking like the first and second cities, the time of Cain and before the biblical flood. I don't mention Clan Tremere very much. That's for a very good reason, as Clan Tremere is a very recent addition to, you know, the whole clan system and vampire culture. That's because I'm talking they were a thing in like the year 1000 CE. They are new because they kind of forced themselves into this goofy old thing called vampirism. Originally, Clan Tremere were wizards. I mean, like mages of the game Mage the Ascension. They were part of the Order of Hermes, and they decided to start experimenting with some other avenues of the supernatural when their methods of immortality weren't working anymore. They had these methods to make immortality potions, and they were like, damn, they ain't hitting right. They're just not working. They started investigating. Specifically, a man with the most evil sounding name, Goratrix, decided to start really digging. How did he do this? Well, it's simple. Kidnap a bunch of the Zamiski vampires, you know, the ones who think torturing is a perfectly good pastime, and torture them back and start investigating ways of immortality. Of course, he did this in secret and eventually came up with a pretty cool ritual. You know, their magic isn't working, and he found, finally, a way to undo all this and give them eternal life. So he set up a ritual between him and his 6 other friends. Very notably, the leader of their house, the man himself, Tremere, took part in this ritual, where they took this vampire of Clan Zamiski and basically all forced themselves to become embraced and became vampires. Now, Goratrix thought this would be a pretty good deal, as he thought he could become a vampire with his buddies with 0 downsides. As we know, that's stupid. That's not how this works at all. He had all the downsides of vampirism, including the fact that his avatar, a very important thing for Mage the Ascension, I will get to it later. I'll talk about that later. I'll put in a pin in that. His avatar disconnected. All of their avatars gone. They're not mages anymore. They're just vampires. He also didn't tell the other guys about this. He didn't tell them they were going to become vampires, because that's the smart thing to do. Tremere is the only reason that Goratrix didn't get murdered by the other dudes that day. It's also up in the air if he even told Tremere this was the plot. I don't know, man. This dude seems like a fucking loose cannon. But they had to make their bed now. They were vampires, and also they had the Zamiski on their back, who really didn't like what they were doing. They also had the wizards on their back, because now a chunk of the Order of Hermes saw that, wow, these dudes turned into vampires. Fuck them, let's go kill them. Obviously, they're in a pretty rough boat. They entered the world of vampires with 0 understanding of what the vampire world was like. So, what is a man to do? Difficult situations. Well, Tremere, the head of the house, started reading about this goofy old thing known as Diablerie. Simply, you know, works like this. You have your blood generation, you drink a vampire of a higher generation, you know, you kind of take their spot. And, you know, more potent your blood, the stronger you are, the higher you get up to Cain. Easy money. So he keeps hearing all these stories of the antediluvians. Well, obviously he wants to get that cool. But, you know, where are the antediluvians at? It's the year 1000 CE. Where are they at? They're all like gone in the flood, so he tracks them down. Here's the question. You're perfectly logical, smart mages that you are. So you need to track down an antediluvian. So what do? And you're also a bunch of mages that no one trusts. No one likes you. You're a bunch of newcomers. You're usurpers. You're a bunch of weird warlocks that everyone doesn't trust because you just kind of forced yourself into the scene. You're a bunch of posers. So obviously, you go find the antediluvian that literally everybody likes. Saulot, the antediluvian for the Salubri. Maybe. There's actually conflicting sources on whether or not the whole thing of Saulot being adored and a decent dude is true or vampire propaganda. Or we'll see. It's really complicated and a really interesting question that I'll cover at some point. But Tremere tracked down the tomb of the sleeping Saulot and drank him. Whether or not Saulot was actually willing for this is another interesting question that I'll cover when I eventually talk about Saulot, because again, there's a lot more details on this than I thought there were. But Tremere drank him. It's like, damn, blood hit different. I'm gonna take a nap, and went to torpor immediately. This left Clan Tremere in a really weird state. Tremere is in torpor. He's in basically a coma. Their leader is gone. They have their pyramid structure. Another thing I'm gonna put a pin into, I will talk at later. This is very important when it comes to the Tremere. The other dudes I talked about, like those 6 other guys, they form what is known as like the pyramid structure. They're leading in his stead as like Tremere's at the top and it all descends downward, as like a pyramid does, you know. The whole drinking of Saulot, pretty big deal. Obviously, no one's happy about this. Specifically, his clan, the Salubri. They're pissed as they start talking about the Tremere, a bunch of Diablerists and a bunch of murderers, and we can't trust them. Well, simply put, the Tremere had enough people in the right positions. They were court mages, they were advisors, just a couple people. They were still a new clan, not fully trusted, but you know, you have a few clever people in the right ear. And then simply all they had to do was just say, nuh-uh, and I know you are, but what am I? I wish I was kidding. They roughly said that. They just flipped it on the Salubris and said, nah, you guys did it. And then the other vampires were like, damn, good point, Tremeres. And which is what leads to the Salubri being hunted down and like basically all wiped out. There's like a handful left. It is also what leads to Clan Tremere now having a decent amount of power, as eventually they would rise up to become a very, very notable clan when it came to the Convention of Thorns with the formation of the Camarilla. As when it comes to like the top dogs in the Camarilla is the Toreador, the Ventru, and the Tremere. It is those 3. However, on the other hand, the Tremere are like banned a lot. They're all the time banned from big cities. Like a pretty prominent example is Seattle. A city I like hail from, kinda. You know, the one part of Vampire Bloodlines that I'm excited about is the fact it's in Seattle. But like, they only recently got access to Seattle because Alec Cross said they could come back. But like, yeah, they just get banned all the time because no one fucking likes them. Still. And the only reason they were even like acknowledged during the Convention of Thorns is because all those shitheads who did the ritual back in the day are dead. Or like close enough to it and like not present anymore that doesn't even matter. So like, because they're not around, the people don't care what they're getting up to, so like whatever. Like the Tremere are fine. Now let's talk about those disciplines that Clan Tremere gets. Now let's knock the 2 really easy basic ones off, the less interesting bits. So you are gonna get Auspex, which is, you know, supernatural perception, which mainly you're gonna be using this to like see the unseen, and then Dominate, so you can supernaturally take people's minds over and make them do whatever you want. Now the interesting bit, blood magic, thaumaturgy and anything that's not Vampire 5th edition, and blood sorcery in V5. Remember what I talked about when it came to the avatars and the fact that they are mages from Mage the Ascension? So I gotta touch on that briefly. So like, understandably, what is the difference? Like, they have magic still, but they also have the same kind of magic as like the Banu Hakim, who also use like thaumaturgy, just they have different spells basically. Okay, so the idea of like an avatar, the thing we got cut off from. In Mage, reality is fake and your avatar is a thing that is basically your access to your power. Once you awaken to the idea that like reality's fake, your avatar is literally a separate personality, but also a portion of your soul. It's like its own driving force in your life that pushes you to ascension. And another way of putting it, I guess, is in Mage, you have like true magic, which is basically reality bending. You can just do whatever you want. The magic in that game is kind of just the word yes. But on the other hand, you also accrue something called paradox. You do something that reality doesn't like, you can throw fireballs, but if people see you do it, you're like, people can't do that, that ain't real. So reality sends spirits that try to correct it as like reality police, paradox. It's interesting, it's weird. Now, much to the annoyance of mages, things like vampires don't have to worry about that. But, you know, blood magic isn't as powerful. Now, that's not to say blood sorcery isn't scary. They can do some cool stuff. You know, some example powers is things like drink you from far away. Or if they really want to, with a little bit of prep, they can just boil your blood. Just start boiling it. And even the Banu Hakim magic is pretty scary. And then also, if you go into anything that isn't V5, you get some absolutely goofy powers, as there's so many paths you can go down and like get increased spells. And now your compulsion and Bane. So, all right, real quick, your compulsion. Perfectionism. You're a wizard. Of course you're gonna be a weird little perfectionist. This is fitting for Tremere. This is just how it be. Now your Bane. This is where it gets, okay. So, you know that thing I was talking about when it comes to the pyramid? I'm gonna talk about it here. So the pyramid is literally a pyramid scheme, starting at the top, where you get, you know, Tremere and going all the way down. How it's set up is you got chantries in each domain. You serve up to the regent. Regent is the highest dude at the peak inside of the domain, serving underneath it in all its own little tiers. Now you might start as a new neophyte joining in the city. You live inside the chantry. Every single one of the Tremere live inside this place. Now, it's all sorted in these little mini tiers with their own little like subgroups with all their own little weird magic names, all with pretentious ass like wizard shit, all with backstabby politics inside of it, playing the game to try to get the slightest bit of promotion, doing whatever they can for like the person right above them so they can ascend up a tier, get a little more powerful. As that's literally the game. You are ascending in Scientology, but vampire Scientology, as you go up the corporate step ladder. That's the Tremere way. But oh no, it gets worse, because what holds the pyramid together? The blood bond. Now, the blood bond, if you're a vampire and you drink another vampire's blood, you are physically and supernaturally indebted to them as like a thrall. So like, say you're blood bonded to somebody and they order you to do something, you have to do it. You are actually compelled, and you have to physically compel yourself, spending like willpower to not. It is hard. It is also, if you're blood bonded, difficult to even leave the fucking city that the person you're blood bonded to lives in. Now, originally, their bane was that you would start blood bonded, and it was easier to get blood bonded because of your internal system. This was originally this case until 2008 happened, because in Vienna, where the main chantry was with all those like big top dog members of the pyramid, the Second Inquisition came and killed them. When they murdered, the pyramid collapsed because all those blood bonds came absolutely tumbling down, and the pyramid collapsed to where the current bane is that Clan Tremere cannot bloodbind at all. It is shut off from them, which is pretty bad, because what do you do when you have a horrifically authoritarian organizational structure with the method of using your organization shut off from you? It's pretty bad. It's pretty rough. By the way, all this is kept secret, so they don't want to talk about it to the other clans, because how do you open this discussion? It's pretty rough. But yeah, that's Clan Tremere in a nutshell. There's more little details hidden about, there's more to talk about. I didn't even get into like the gargoyles and the other random tidbits, but they're great. There's a lot more to like love about them. Like I said, they're one of my favorites. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, join my membership, and see ya.